So girls, today you are beginning work on your comparative literature essay. Now, we've talked about this at the beginning of the Little B unit, how this is really like your capstone essay for the entire year. This is where we're really going to, practice those skills regarding analysis and synthesis. We've done that all year in the form of written commentaries. You're going to demonstrate your ability to organize and create concise, insightful arguments, and you've done that throughout the year in your formal essays. But this assignment really asks you to combine these skills because you have to have the analytical nature of a commentary, but then you really have to keep that focus and that organization as you would in your formal essays. And really, your goal here is to bring a new depth of meaning to the works that you're discussing. And to demonstrate your ability to support an original claim. And the really key word there is original claim. I want this to be something that you are, at the end of it, that you're proud of. That you look back and you go, wow, I did this, and this was my idea, and that was my work. And I want you to take some risks here in terms of what you compare, in terms of what you look at. So let's start by talking about the different steps that I think that you need to take today. And then we're going to talk about what steps I think you need to complete within this class period and how we'll move forward. Now, if you're looking at your agenda, and I know this sounds weird, but I do want you to actually take out your agenda right now. We have 3 class periods this week. Today is really going to be spent brainstorming and working through the novels and finding your textual evidence, and hopefully by the end of today you will have an understanding of the focus for your essay. You'll have a pretty good start collecting your textual evidence, and you should have a preliminary thesis ready. Now on Wednesday you have chapters 10 and 11 due, and our last group is presenting. There will absolutely be a reading quiz that day. Please be expecting it. And that's our last day talking specifically about Little B. Friday is an essay work day, and we will do nothing but work on the essay that day. And then next week, Tuesday and Thursday are also essay work days. So you have 3 class periods after today where you will do nothing but work on this essay. So your essay is going to be due Thursday, May 18th by 9 p.m. And I have to stay firm to that 9 p.m. deadline because then I have to have a really quick turnaround for these essays. So that's just something to keep in mind. All right, so let's go back into our piece now, into our essay assignment, and let's talk about the steps for completing the essay. So step 1 is to determine a specific aspect that you wish to compare in each novel. Now, you're not writing on all 5 novels. You're going to choose 2, and they could be any 2 that you wish. And I will tell you this, when my White Day students began looking at these novels, so many of them were like, oh my God, I'm not writing on Jane Eyre, I'm not writing on Jane Eyre. Well, guess what? A lot of them are writing on Jane Eyre because there's some good stuff there. There's a lot of connections that can be made. You need to make sure that this aspect is really centered on a literary device, and you want to think big in these terms. So look up at the wall at the Unpacking the Text display. You want to think about things like setting. Do we have a shared setting? In Mr. Pip and Little B, beaches both play a role. In Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre, the idea of walking through nature is a big thing. Is there a shared symbol or a shared type of symbol? You can certainly look at conflict, both external or internal, although I wouldn't look at both. I think that you would have to choose one or the other. You could look at theme. You could look at characterization is huge. You can look at narrative voice. It's your choice as to the pieces that you choose to analyze, but you have to start here. And I'm going to tell you that this was the big mistake that people in my D block class made. They did step 2 before they did step 1, and when they did step 2 before step 1, it was very difficult to then go back and make changes. So you have to start with that literary device. What's something they share? Now, you should not be looking at the aspect of author style yet. So we're not looking at diction and we're not looking at syntax. Those cannot be the things that you center the essay around. Now, you could look at those in terms of the development of the setting, or the development of the characterization is through diction, or the development of setting is through syntax, but that cannot be what you center around your essay. Now, you need to spend some time analyzing this, and you've got to find some textual evidence. And you need to look at how it's used, when it's used, what's the effect. You've got to unpack the text, and all that has to happen first. And again, can't stress that enough. Now, in the second step, that's where you're going to determine the big idea that the author is exposing through the use of this literary device. Now, I really debated whether or not I should use the word theme, but I think big idea is better, because I think when we sometimes begin to look at theme, we kind of go back to grade school mentality, and we think that the theme is the moral of the story, and the theme is not the moral of the story, right? It's the topic, it's the big idea. If you begin with the big idea, like I said, then you get hung up on the big idea, and that's all you focus on, and then you don't know how it's developed. So once again, and I just can't say this enough, find the literary device first and then look at the big idea. Now, we've looked at big ideas really all throughout Little B. You know, the idea of escape, the idea of identity, the idea of gender, the idea of oppression. But you've got to stay focused on the literary device first. Now, when you're writing your thesis, there are quite a few things that need to be included. You need to have the names of both of your text, the authors, the literary device, the big idea, and the author purpose. Okay, and you have to remember that your thesis, I apologize, that should say thesis, comes at the end of your introductory paragraph. So I've given you an example here. I want you to mark it and find all of those things that I've just said have to be included in your thesis. In Emily Bronte's novel Wuthering Heights and Charles Dickens' novel Great Expectations, animal imagery is used to display a lack of humanity in the lower classes, exposing the author's view of Victorian society. Okay, so I've got all of my pieces there. In terms of organization, and really the thesis is as far as you should get today, and that will take you 90 minutes to go through these books, to figure out how it's going to work. I mean, that will truly take you 90 minutes. Now, after today, we're going to get into outlining. And when I talk about outlining, what I just want you to know is that the organizational scheme of your essay, the form has to fit the function. That's it. There is no one right or wrong way to write your outline for this. Everybody's is going to be different based on the topic that they choose and the evidence that they choose. But a sentence outline is going to be required. I'll talk more about that in just a moment. Remember to address the so what. You know, why is this piece of textual evidence that you chose significant? And that means that you have spent some time selecting the text that you're going to use. You can't just, oh, this passage mentions a dog, and I'm talking about dogs, and so I'm going to throw that in there. You have to be very deliberate in the text that you have chosen. And you also have to make sure that you're addressing the what's the point. You know, why does the textual evidence matter in the work? How does this reveal the big idea? Now, in terms of some general reminders, the essays, of course, are graded out of 100 points, and you have the rubric there. There's no paragraph requirement for the essay, but it may not exceed 3 pages in length. That doesn't include the works cited page. So 3 pages, absolute max. You have to cut that off, and that means you don't have a lot of room to mess around with your argument. You have to be extremely concise. You have to be extremely tight in your organization. Now, an introduction and conclusion are required, but we're really going to truncate those. We're going to make those really, really, really concise. I don't want anything more than 3 sentences in either one of those paragraphs. And the introduction, one of those sentences has to be the thesis statement. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, a sentence outline is required, and you're going to meet with me individually to discuss your outline. Now, over on the board, you see some sign-up sheets. People have already begun to sign up. You need to sign up for a meeting time with me to discuss your outline. Now, what that means, though, is that when you walk into this meeting, you have to have an outline ready. So choose a date that is going to give you enough time to really complete the outline, but means that you'll still have enough time to write the essay. So if you can sign up early, please do so, okay? And you'll notice that some are during teams, some are after school, some are actually during class. And so hopefully there's a spot there that will work for everybody. And then really the big thing to remember, this is your capstone assignment for your sophomore year. This is where you are demonstrating to me everything that you have learned so far. And that's a big deal. That's a really, really, really big deal. This is also Mrs. Crusoe's first introduction to you as a writer. I mean, when I'm finished grading them, I hand them to Mrs. Crusoe, and then she reads them before, classes begin in August. So you want to present your best self in this writing. You want to impress not only the person that's worked with you all year, but you want to impress the person that's going to work with you all next year. So good luck today. Let me know if there's any questions that you have. Shoot me an email, and I'll see you Wednesday.